Full Metal Jacket plot, if you're looking to understand it, you want to think about it in two major parts. The first part is the boot camp. The boot camp begins with shaving the heads and introducing the main characters, those being the gunnery sergeant, Private Joker, and Gomer Pyle. Gomer Pyle, do you know where that came from?
I knew it was a reference that I didn't know.
That's exactly it. Okay, great.
What is it?
It's a reference that I don't know. It's a reference to some guy who's out of place and naive and dumb and all that. And it's an insulting name. It's actually from a spin-off series, although I didn't recognise either of them. So nice. Moving on. So yeah, you start off, you get introduced to the main characters. You've got Private Joker, who for some reason starts like quoting John Wayne.
There's a John Wayne impression throughout.
But okay, so throughout maybe it's a character thing, but why did he do it in that scene?
Terrible idea.
What the hell was he thinking?
First scene.
It wasn't even funny.
First scene, we're showing the drill sergeant comes in, as we've spoken about before. He's rattling off a series of insults. He's obviously been to this rodeo before. He's insulting every single member of the new recruits.
Very well.
Very. The minute he steps in the room, you realise this guy is not to be fucked with in a battle of witty repartee. This guy is dropping some unbelievably quick, well-timed references and sharp zingers. And for some reason, Private Joker goes with he just from the other end of the room does a John Wayne impression, which is a bad impression.
And there's no reason to do it.
Absolutely, there's no reason whatsoever for him to do it.
No one around him laughs.
Yeah, no one laughs.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we got Joker, we got Pyle,
and because of this, he's referred to as the Joker.
He's referred to as Private Joker.
He does this a lot, by the way.
And then he just continues to do it.
Whenever he does this John Wayne impression, people laugh. It's not funny.
It's a sympathy laugh. Everyone's being very kind for a Vietnam War film.
Yep.
Because it's not funny and it's not very good. Then, so you've introduced all the main characters, and then really the sort of plot of the actual 45-minute movie that you get given starts. And it's basically the brutally demanding boot camp training. Mm-hmm. It's too much for Pyle. He's trying to do the physical activities. He's trying to climb over stuff. He's trying to keep up with them on the runs, and the drill sergeant is what I can only assume is kind of putting the kind of pressure on him that he might experience in a battlefield, and that's kind of the reason why he's putting that level of pressure on him. It becomes too much power, and basically the rest of the squad ends up getting punished. That's kind of where the plot begins, really.
Yeah, and up to this point, what Kubrick is making quite clear to the audience is that Pyle, through several plot points or through several scenes, Pyle is expressed to be basically like a childlike character. So during the initial sequence, when the drill sergeant is shouting outside of Joker doing John Wayne, which by the way he gets hit, he gets physically assaulted for by the drill sergeant and shuts up thereafter. The only other one who has any sort of lack of straightforward, just abiding by what the drill sergeant says is Private Pyle, and he's got a very childlike grin on his face, and he's just can't stop himself from laughing until
hilarious.
He's literally, very funny. We were laughing, he was laughing. It was a great time. Until he got choked in the throat.
He choked himself.
Until he had to choke himself. So then throughout, he exhibits a real struggle doing any of the physical activities, as Jamie said. But also they represent him as a childlike figure, so he struggles to abide by any of the rules. When he is punished, it's kind of emphasis on him being like a kid. Like he has his thumb. He's told to have his thumb in his mouth and walk behind people with his trousers down. At one point, the scene that Jamie refers to, when there's the switch to other people getting punished, it's because he's stolen a jelly donut and he's not.
Hilarious.
And and he's not locked his footlocker.
Yep.
So all of this, the whole first segment is building up to basically the turn in his psyche of us trying to make people ready for war. And Kubrick, my interpretation is he wants to show how the machine works mostly, because a lot of these people end up being, real killers. They do get finely tuned to being ready for war. But the outliers who are either enlisted through conscription or have stupidly decided to join the army, they're going to basically be more of a danger going forward.
So Pyle's been failing, drill sergeant's been picking on him. It's kind of showing the humiliation and the difficulty. And then Pyle has a turning moment when they all hit him with bars of soap.
Yeah.
Now, Fred, I have a question for you, mate. How painful do you reckon that was?
Well, you by the sound of it, you're thinking not very painful.
Not painful at all. It's soap in socks.
Nah, I gotta disagree, man. That's a hard bar of soap.
It's a bar of fucking soap is what it is. Do you know what the other films put in socks when they hit people with? Like snooker balls.
Yeah, okay, yeah. In the Mafia.
But it didn't look painful at all. It literally didn't look... Oh, okay, fine.
They haven't made up that punishment. People did it.
I'll be brutally honest with you, mate.
It's not because it felt like feathers.
I wouldn't then subsequently go down the route that Pyle goes down.
No, I'll give you that.
I wouldn't take it that badly. So Pyle gets basically the rest of the squad gets punished for Pyle's let's say, how would you describe it? His
inadequacy.
That's exactly the word I was looking for. And the rest of the group turns on him. This really, I think, is the moment where you start to see Pyle become the second, the duality of man, the evil Pyle, the thing. This is really the trigger,
which is a theme throughout the duality of man, and is even explicitly referenced by Joker, one of the characters later on,
which is a really, really cool moment. Then Pyle gets introduced to the rifles. He's decided that he's going to kick ass, and the drill sergeant introduces the rifle training by saying, look at these two terrorist attacks. How great was their shooting? They were Marines. That was his logic.
Yeah.
And all the while, the cameraman is getting closer and closer to fucking Pyle's face as he's looking absurdly evil and nobody notices.
Yeah.
So basically at this point, what it's saying is Pyle's he's been turned on. It's not looking good for him, and now they're putting a weapon in his hands. Here's how this has gone in the past.
Which he keeps talking to, by the way.
Which he keeps talking to.
He's like, when no one's looking, he's like, "Oh, you're a pretty little rifle, aren't you?"
Yeah, it was weird. I was trying to figure out if it was weird or not. I don't.
"Oh, you're a sexy little rifle."
The thing is, I mutter to myself when I work. Right, I kind of like, oh, I'll do this.
I go,
"Ooh,
that's a sexy
And,
little
yeah. And if I'm ever working on a rifle, what a shaft you've got, you know. And then, so he's trained on the rifles, and he starts to demonstrate some level of competency.
Oh, yeah.
He starts to look like he's really turning things around. The drill sergeant doesn't do a hell of a lot to encourage this. He points it out at one point by saying something like, maybe we found something that you don't suck ass at.
Yeah.
But, it's fine. That's his job. And then we get to graduation day. So up to this point, we've had Pyle, who's been... The pressure has been piled on top of him.
Nice.
And then they popped him with a bunch of soap. So all the... No, that's not how...
I was waiting for you to explain a different scene when they popped him.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
They all took turns.
Pyle's pressure builds up.
Him.
He turns crazy. He gets good at guns. He graduates.
He does graduate.
He gets put into some division, which I was kind of looking forward to seeing him in action in. And then we get to the greatest scene I've seen in a very long time.
You loved it, did you?
I thought it was freaking awesome. Yeah,
sick. Nice.
I loved the turning crazy Pyle. I loved the stakes. I loved the way the drill sergeant's character behaved. You know
what is your major malfunction,
Yes. Like he didn't really look in the least bit scared, or like he just was a very cool. Every character did their roles perfectly for me to enjoy that scene.
You could see how he just didn't think that he was going to do anything based on like the kind of relationship between kind of a subservient and dominant force in a relationship, and he just didn't think that this guy was going to crack, and thought, I'm just going to pile more abuse onto him, and then he just shot him, and it was
I respected really cool. That a lot from the drill sergeant with a gun pointed at him to just double down, just keep going. You know, that's a man who's been at war. You know, that's a man who I cannot.
Can you
help but
imagine if
respect.
he'd have actually taken it and, you know, given him the gun?
Yeah.
Shouted him off to bed and just gone, holy shit. That was fucking, that was close, wasn't it?
So Powell kills the drill sergeant. And to be honest with you, as sad as I was, I don't think that first part of the movie would have had nearly the impact on me that it had if it didn't have such a crazy twist. I didn't see it coming, at all. I didn't get the fact he was going crazy or evil. I was just like, why does he look so like... Okay, I didn't like his acting, okay? Right. A lot of people probably aren't going to like that take, but okay. I thought he well overplayed everything. And so when he was pulling that angry face, I just kind of wasn't quite sure what he was doing.
Yeah, it's very, it's... Well, I was about to say, well, it's clear he's doing an angry, crazy face, but you literally just said, I didn't know what he was doing. So I get what you mean. I think that, I guess they're playing on the childlike...
Which I didn't get.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a kid, right? Basically a kid in an adult's body. And so when he goes mental, it makes sense for him to be that overt.
Yeah.
But sometimes people, you know what people are going for and you still don't like it. So,
I didn't know what he was going for. The whole thing was just wasted on me. Like, I just completely missed it. That's not Kubrick's
probably
fault.
added to the twist.
Yeah. He came in and he was like there with a gun looking crazy. I was like, God, he's looking a bit crazy, that guy. I just completely missed it up to that point. But anyway, I digress. They've graduated, Powell's killed the sergeant, and then he blows his own brains out.
Good,
and
that's cool.
That brings us to the end of the movie. Thank you very much for listening.
It would have been a great short film, wouldn't it?
It would have been the best short. It would have been one of the best films ever, and it would have been a short film.
So we'll rattle through the less interesting part of the story then. So following that, we have a bit of a time skip and we go in the field. Joker, who was kind of a secondary character in the first half. So we spoke about Pyle and the drill sergeant, who are the main sort of protagonist, antagonist, or all the main pillars of the first half. Joker he's a character who potentially shags an armpit in the first half. Then he becomes a journalist for Stars and Stripes, which is a propaganda magazine in Da Nang. We essentially follow his in the field experience after that. So journalist in a low risk environment at first. Then we have the Tet offensive that happens, which was quite interesting.
Important historically.
Yeah, did you know much about the Tet offensive?
Not much, but I'd heard of it.
Same here. I mean, I knew when they started talking about the Tet holiday, they probably was going to not be as sunshine and rainbows as they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, they essentially say, oh, we're hearing rumours that there might be something going down at Tet, which is obviously a Vietnamese important holiday season, where there's usually a ceasefire. And the officer who's in charge of Stars and Stripes goes, they say this every year, no chance. And then the most famous sequence of the whole Vietnam War happens, where they essentially struck loads of different bases, and the Viet Cong struck loads of different bases. So we have that. Following that, they go out into the field. So this is Joker and his kind of lackey, who's another journalist who is a private rather than an officer.
Seems to know each other from home, maybe.
Yeah, I think he was... I don't know if he is. I think it's just that Joker's a sergeant now, so he's got this lackey in. And then they go over to see Cowboy.
Yep.
So they end up... going out into the field with Cowboy's troop.
He's sent out into the field Cowboy's because he's prattling around too much. And so the guy goes, okay, almost. You know what? You're going to the front lines. Go have a look. And
during this, he has he has the peace symbol on his lapel, whilst also having a helmet on that says "Born to Kill," which is throwing up a lot of antagonism from his higher ups. And that's when he mentions this Jungian duality of man. I was kind of going for the duality of man when he gets questioned on it. What
does the duality of man mean when he's referring to that?
So, look, my understanding of Jungian psychology is not... I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but...
I'm disappointed.
So you have... I believe the idea is kind of Jung went into a lot of the rationality in the subconscious and the animal versus the id and
shadow.
Yeah, the shadow. And so basically what you're in control of and what you're keeping at bay, I think.
Okay.
And so duality of man as it pertains to Full Metal Jacket is subliminally shown, although quite obviously shown in the first half. And then it's referenced.
Yeah.
Is it maybe a tiny bit heavy-handed, but he specifically references it as, in his instance, Joker's instance, he's referring to, I've got the peace symbol here, which is really getting popular traction back home. Vietnam War, people are wanting it to end. But I've also Vietnam War. Vietnam War. That was
okay, so the duality of man, as far as I was aware, basically is just the kind of seemingly self-contradictory phenomenon that man can both have evil and good inside of him. I think is that kind of in line with what you were saying a little bit?
Yeah, I guess that's
with the peace symbol and the born to kill.
And we have examples throughout the film. So obviously the example of Private Pile. We've also got Animal Mother being kind of an animalistic killer who also is very protective near the end. One of the videos I watched was really good. You might have seen it as well. Was kind of a character study on both parts of the film, and he refers to Animal Mother as a really good visceral example of this duality of man. Where you think of him as this animal. He's almost the most rotten of the bunch, but when he's initially presented, his maybe closest compatriot, 8-Ball, says, "Oh, you want him with you in a fight."
Yeah.
And then he ends up being the one who really does the most to rescue, not rescue people, but he is the one who actually goes out of his way to do almost like, I don't know, this guy argues not the moral thing. He just does something that is not in his self-interest.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting example. Anyway, they go out in the field, Tet offensive, reconnection with Cowboy, who's another Marine from the start. And then essentially through a series of unfortunate events, Cowboy, who's kind of third in command, his two leaders in the group get killed one by one, and Cowboy ends up manning the group that they're going with, the squad, and they're out in a kind of Hue City offensive in Vietnam, trying to recover this city, and throughout that they essentially get kind of taken out by this sniper. Cowboy dies. Rough death for Cowboy. And the whole coming full circle of the plot is Joker's coming to terms with, I guess, the immorality of war or the payback nature of war when he sees his friend die in his arms. And all he's focusing on is Animal goes to him, let's go after this sniper who's taken out a couple of our crew. And he doesn't think like, okay, we need to preserve the pack here. Let's go for revenge. And they go, take out the sniper. The sniper itself is a kind of child, younger, maybe a teenage girl. Yeah. Part of the Viet Cong, but all in all,
clearly a child, which is really the point.
And what happens? The final part of the film is him coming to a decision once they've almost killed her. They basically get this sniper and get her into a corner and surprise her. He almost kills her, but then his gun jams. He almost dies. He gets saved by the private who he brought on at the start, the journalist. And then it becomes a decision of, do we kill this?
Do we execute? Do we see her off?
Do we
finish this job?
And he makes the decision that the moral thing he thinks to do is actually kill her. And again, it's sort of one of Kubrick's films on war seem to have a lot of... There's no good and bad, really. It's people and their interaction with morality and how they navigate this. And I guess it's up to you to decide what would have been the right thing to do.
There's that rich complexity of the characters where they're not, Captain America. Do you think you could have done it?
What, killed her?
Finished off the kid at the end.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
You reckon?
I was like, give me that gun. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I think if someone's saying... At the end, she's basically praying, and then she starts speaking English and goes, shoot me.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing her a favour, man.
It depends if I killed anyone at that point,
No.
It doesn't.
No. You haven't killed anyone.
Right, that's the question. No, it doesn't depend.
No.
All right. So I haven't killed anyone.
You've never killed anyone. This is your first kill. This girl very nearly killed you. She's clearly about to die. No one else is going to see her off. She wants you to kill her. Do you reckon in the moment you could look someone in the eyes and light-hearted chat for the Mainline podcast?
Could we like punch her to death?
How is that better? How is that better?
What about if we all got some bars of soap? With a bit of sock, just smacked her in the head until she was dead.
That would take forever.
I'd like to say that I could.
Yeah.
I think it's hard though if you're there.
Nah. I can't believe how long he took over it.
I was just going, kill her!
Just get on with it, man.
Kill her!
What's he waiting for? Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, plot, what would you say then
Yeah.
is, what were your main takeaways from the story? From a Kubrick perspective, what do you reckon he was trying?
What do I think he was trying?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was definitely... I think he was trying a lot of different things, and that was perhaps one of the things that made me enjoy it slightly less.
Yeah.
Very obviously the duality of man.
Okay.
And we got to see that through Private Joker and kind of the moments where he showed compassion and things like that. There was definitely a sense of him emphasizing the youth in the Marines. He was clearly trying to say, like, these are not much. The guy, Private Joker, and the ones who have to execute this sniper at the end are not even that much older.
Yeah.
They're all kids, and it's emphasized with the Mickey Mouse song at the end.
Yeah, that's a cool point.
So there's definitely a lot of that going on. Duality of man, absurdity of war.
Some of the duality stuff, it wasn't even necessarily duality of man, but he did have points where it was clear he was going for, you know, when we spoke about the absurdity of war versus the horror of it, he had a lot of dueling points, I guess, where there were two very conflicting ideas at play at once. For instance, like the glamorization of war, it was very interesting that he decided to make them like a journalistic troupe, or to make Joker journalistic. So he could basically showcase how they were thingying the war, the propaganda they were using in the war, but also the responses of the individual people in the war. Like, they were doing these horrific acts and they were being quite jovial about it, because the fame element of it plays at the horror in people's psyche. Yeah. So when the minute the cameras got out, they're all smiles and jokes. You had that example where there's a pit with 20 dead Vietnamese in it, and the officer that they are interviewing keeps like saying something, oh, it's so horrific, and then every time the person takes a picture, he like does a cheesy smile. So and it was very obvious that they were going for something like that, and so it plays into what we spoke about, Catch-22 being the conflict between the absurd and the shocking, but also things like the glamorization of war, obviously duality of man. They kind of hit you over the head with that. It seems like he was really trying to show war as a conflict that's more than just through armament.
So like you said earlier, I think it's difficult because it's, to me, there's nothing new in any of those themes from what hadn't just been done in like Apocalypse Now and, like you said, in Catch-22.
Yeah, that's true.
It was kind of the themes felt they felt nuanced, but they felt nuanced in a way where it was like, yeah, okay, we've kind of done this before.
Yeah, that's true. It did feel, even speaking about it then, felt like I was doing like a year 11 English essay where I was like trying to find stuff that was there seemed like there wasn't much subtlety in it. Like, you didn't have to go out your way reading about what he was trying to say. Yeah. Like, if he was talking about duality of man, he literally had a guy come up and say, I'm going for the duality of man look. Yeah. Whereas I guess great art is one that you, or for me, in some of the classic films that we look at, It's stuff that you read about and you find out more, things that you
So
didn't
true.
think, different perspectives.
Depth that's not obvious when you first see it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it takes much more reflection and
Sure.
research and things like that. And it didn't really have that much of that.
No, but I think that great film for the first 45. That's what brings it. That's the new stuff that was brought to the table here, and the rest of it is kind of treading water that you've seen
Yeah.
in other war films.